Welcome to Darwin's Rejects, where people make stupid decisions and almost get themselves killed. I've made a nice collection of these people. So, without further ado, let's get started. It was a sunny Tuesday. They were cruising along Highway 99 near Modesto until he spotted a tractor trailer that was hauling a bulk cargo of red wine. He pulled over alongside the cab and he gestured the driver, making the driver think that he had a trouble with his rig. So the driver pulled over behind the sedan. When the sedan opened the door, he emerged walking only underpants. Seeing this odd behavior, the trucker decided to pull away and to get back on the highway to get away from this crazy person. But what the driver didn't see was this man running behind the truck, climbing barefoot on board the trailer and maneuvering under it. Well, the truck was reaching highway speeds. While he was out of sight, he unscrewed a valve and positioned himself under the outlet pipe, and a gush of wine came out. So he happily commenced in gulping it down as much as he could. But that left a lot flowing onto the asphalt. The driver noticed that he was bleeding cargo at an alarming rate. So he called the highway patrol and he pulled off onto the shoulder. An arresting officer found the man lying on the ground still drinking, making snow angels in the red wine, still having it gush all over him. As was expected, he was a bit intoxicated. They handcuffed him. Fortunately, he was quite cooperative. Seattle police was searching for an assault victim because people were hearing screams, saying that it sounded like someone was in dire pain. They followed their ears to a quite grisly scene. There was a man impaled on a fence post. He was trying to support himself up to avoid any more injury. Well, the Seattle Fire Department, they arrived and they stabilized him and transported him to the hospital. Officers interviewed him, and the man insisted that he wasn't being chased, but rather he thought he was a ninja and that he could successfully jump over a 5-foot spiked fence with some mad ninja skills. He ended up getting a bit too familiar with the fence post. One man tends to be rather wild. Like one time he was bowling and he had trouble controlling the ball. Apparently his fingers got stuck in the hole, or he released it too late. But the bowling ball went straight up. Everyone froze. He just looked around and he asked where it went before the ball came back down and landed on his head. He tried to convince everyone that he was okay, but they rushed him to the hospital. Well, he had to get stitches, but other than that, and also he had so much metal in his head that he would set off airport metal detectors. But guess what? That's not his first time. He was also racing on the highway with a friend, going through a heavy blizzard, and his windshield wipers flew completely off. Now, a normal person would probably slow down, but no. He stuck his head out the window and continued racing. Ah yes. Here's another one that he did. He decided that walking 30 feet around a chain link fence was too much trouble, so he decided to climb over it. It resulted in him screaming because he had ripped the crotch out of his pants, and he was bleeding all over. And his most recent was when he dove headfirst down a muddy slope when he was attending a rained-out NASCAR event, and he got a small rock lodged into his forehead. Well, his forehead was ballooned for several months. You know what? He might eventually win the award. He's got time. Two co-workers decided to celebrate the 4th of July in their own special way. How? Well, they loaded an old washing machine with 10 pounds of firecrackers, lit the fuse and dropped the lid, and they ran. Nothing happened. Well, 20 minutes later, they decided that the fuse was a dud, so they went to try again. Not realizing that it was oxygen starved, they lifted the lid, and the entire washer exploded. Well, they were in the hospital for several days. Shrapnel from the washer spread in a 25 feet radius. It also left a large crater. They suffered relatively minor injuries, shockingly. This is a tradition that's been handed down for generations. Every year the Britons, they chase a wheel of cheese down a hill. Well, you might not think that's too dangerous, but 7 pounds worth of cheese rolling down a hill and several dozen contestants taking pursuit, trying to catch the cheese so they could keep it, wouldn't be that dangerous if it wasn't so steep. Well, it was inevitable that lots of people would trip. Pretty much every year, they had someone with a broken arm or some other injuries after rolling down a 100 feet steep slope. Despite the gruesome history of injury, usually contestants seem to be triumphant and feel like it was worth the broken arm to win. Just recently, 18 people were injured, including a spectator who tried to dodge the cheese but ended up getting a head injury and falling down the slope himself. Tradition has a way of ignoring safety sometimes. This incredible stupidity was actually verified. It was actually reported in a medical journal. A 20-year-old man went to the emergency room. He was complaining about rectal pain. Well, they took x-rays and they saw a large mass. Well, upon asking the patient what happened, he said that him and his buddy were fooling around. They mixed up a bag of concrete. Then he laid on his back with his feet up in the air while the friend poured the mix in a funnel down his butt. Well, it was taken out without incident. It was revealed that the concrete was a perfect cast of his rectum. When the concrete was taken apart, they found a white plastic ping pong ball. He said that they put the cement in there in an attempt to retrieve the ping pong ball. Unfortunately, it wasn't because they were drunk. They just lack in the intelligence department. The physicians did recommend psychiatric care, but they declined. Well, Pokemon Go might continue to have a dwindling fan base. Because people are getting bored? No, not exactly. 2 Florida men were blindly following the app's clues, and while they was paying attention to their phone, they were not paying attention to the 75 to 100 foot cliff right in front of them. Fortunately, they both survived with minor injuries. I'm surprised they didn't break anything. There was a pedestrian car collision, but this one kinda takes the cake. Well, this guy loved video games. He was a 23-year-old man who was hanging out in a college town. He was discussing the merits of Frogger. At some point, the man yelled "go" and he darted out in traffic, trying to dodge cars, like playing a real-life Frogger game. According to him, suddenly he realized he was about to lose a life, and just like Frogger, he went splat. Fortunately for him, his meeting the sports utility vehicle only ended him in the hospital. I'm sure he got teased relentlessly for this, which he totally deserved. This one's actually a tour guide from Florida. He's either really smart or really dumb. I'm gonna lean toward the latter because he makes his money mostly by his sensationalism. He records videos that usually go viral. The reason why it's so dumb is because what he does. He gets in the habit of feeding alligators marshmallows by holding it between his teeth. He swims with the alligators, gets their attention, then makes the alligator eat it from his mouth. That's how he makes his living. He might be crazy enough to live. I don't think you can ever really domesticate alligators though. Those jaws, if they get around your head, they can crush it like a watermelon. No, thank you. There are some really weird things that end up in the train station lockers, but this one takes it to another level. One night, after cruising around with his friends, this one guy thought it would be an amusing idea if he can shove himself into a suitcase locker, just for laughs. But that didn't last long, because this thing was airtight. Well, they started to freak out. They couldn't unlock it. Fortunately enough for him, the police broke it open, and they was able to get him out before he passed out. One 18-year-old decided that he needed money for beer. The problem was, he had no way to raise money. He did know that the brass shell casings could sell for like $1.70 for a pound. The trouble was, none of them were empty. So his solution He took the full brass shells, put them in a steel vice grip, then he banged the tip with a screwdriver, making it go off. Well, he was successful for like 100 rounds, but that last one, it ricocheted and it hit him right in the abdomen. He did survive. He was treated at the local hospital and finally released. This one, I don't know how she did it. I really don't want to know either. All I know is the article. The woman tried to smuggle an automatic pistol into a high-security prison. She was concealing it in her rectum. How does that work? I don't know. They say that it can stretch pretty big. I'd rather not know. Unfortunately for her, she was unable to remove the weapon. Well, she needed medical attention. She told the warden that she was pregnant, so she was rushed to a nearby hospital. It is known that visitors tend to smuggle drugs and liquor, but they're rarely hospitalized, and it's practically unknown of people cramming automatic weapons up their private parts. After about 3 days in the hospital, she confessed the real reason, and after they removed the pistol, she was charged with illegal weapon possession. An Orlando restaurant had a fire spread. The rusty metal chimney ignited old dry wood that was surrounding it. The flame shot to the roof. It started being filled with smoke. A lot of the patrons were smart enough to exit. At least most of them did. But a few greedy patrons decided to rush to the buffet and fill their plate so they could eat it outside. One was seen stealing tips off tables, and another patron asked the officials if the restaurant would reopen so that she could have her pudding. One man moved to a new rental home. Well, the yard hadn't been mowed in like a year, so he decided to mow down the overgrown weeds. Soon he ran over a foot-wide hole, and out came an angry army of Yellowjackets. Well, he ran away. He knew he had to get rid of them. So while he was drinking, he thought of a solution. He poured a 5-gallon jug of gasoline down the hole. He drank some more beer, thinking that his mission was accomplished. Well, an hour later, he decided to be more cautious and burn them out, not just let the gasoline kill them. If you know anything about gasoline, it is extremely flammable. Well, he found this out himself. He tossed a match down the hole, followed by a loud explosion. He survived, but his hair, his eyebrows, all gone. He also made a 6-foot crater where the wasp nest was. A 21-year-old marksman explained that he exchanged the BB pellets in a shotgun shell with plumber's putty, and he wanted to test fire it. So he decided to perform a few tests. First, he shot it at a pillow between himself and the gun, because you're the best option for testing a bullet. Well, he shot, and it didn't hurt him, so he decided to do it without the pillow. Don't shoot it at a target that are meant for testing guns, but yourself. Well, this brilliant young man shot himself in the abdomen. They had to do surgery to remove the wad of putty that was lodged in his cavity. The fire department was called to assist a man who suffered injuries from a crash while driving a motorized bar stool. This actually sounds kind of cool. He did claim that the lawnmower bar stool hybrid could reach the speeds of 28 miles per hour with a 5 horsepower engine, but he decided to travel slow at 20 miles an hour. That didn't stop him from crashing when trying to make a turn. Now, driving a bar stool sounds kind of cool if you're not on major roads, and if you're not also drunk, which he was. He admitted to drinking 15 beers. Now, I'm not going to discourage this behavior because it sounds pretty awesome, except for the drinking part. Don't do these things drunk. And if you got a suspended license, don't drive on the road. An 18-year-old man received a notification that he was going to be registered for a health check to serve mandatory service in the Army. Well, he did not want that. The only way you could get out of it is if you were physically unable or enrolled in higher education. Well, he fit in neither of those categories. He did not want to admit defeat, though, because he was determined to get out of it. So while he was playing with his cat, he accidentally got scratched. And bang! He got this brilliant idea. And he decided that his cat was too small and not enough for him, which led him to go to the zoo. Some people watched him as he went toward the lion's cage, reached inside and started yelling at the male lion. He wanted to provoke the animal to attack. Well, the cat got amused, came up to the small human who was stubbornly trying to provoke him, but in an effort to irritate the cat and not just amuse him, he pulls on his mane. Well, the cat didn't like that. Did he just give him a nasty scratch? Nope. His plan worked too well, as a matter of fact. The irate lion, he didn't just scratch him. He used his powerful jaws to rip the man's arm off. Well, insurance decided not to cover him. Big surprise, huh? He later tried to sue the insurance company because they wouldn't. Can't join the army because he's too armless. I'm so sorry. I don't even try, it just comes out. Kind of like Red and my son, they automatically facepalm as soon as I say one. A news crew was filming a storm when they captured a 26-year-old man riding a windsurf through the air. This nice young gentleman decided to go surfing during a tropical storm. He was harnessed to his sail when he got picked up by the wind, but he couldn't unlatch himself because he got whirled around, and he wasn't fast enough to take the kite off. Well, he flew up into the air and he was slammed up against a building. He had to go to the hospital in critical condition. He did survive. A 30-year-old welder and 4 co-workers attempted to blow up a plastic bucket. One man placed a striker, which is a spark-generating device, put it in the bucket and sealed it. Then they filled the bucket with an explosive gas used for welding. The plan was to toss the bucket into the air and watch it explode. Well, it didn't work out that way. Unfortunately, before they threw it, one of the co-workers accidentally kicked the bucket and it made the striker spark, and boom! The explosive force, it turned the lid into a saw and it flew through the air and struck a man on the right arm, almost severing it. He also had some lacerations on his right leg. A 35-year-old man had a fun idea for a prank. He was going to shoot a 6-inch rocket at his girlfriend as he drove by in his Mustang. Before he could launch it though, he let the fuse burn down to the ignition point. Well, the rocket shot off inside the car and it ricocheted all around the inside of the car. It finally exploded when it was between his legs. The temporary flash did blind him, which fortunately, it protected him from seeing the extent of the damage to his crotch. When people rushed over to the car and saw that his crotch was on fire, they extinguished the flames. Seeing the man was singed from the waist down. He actually had the outline of his sandals burned onto his feet. Thank you for joining me for the Darwin Rejects. I hope they use this as a learning experience and not just postpone the inevitable if they didn't. I want to give a special thanks to my patrons. I really appreciate your help. If you want to become a patron and really help out this channel, you can visit Patreon, and for as little as pocket change per month, you can get advanced access to MP3s that you can download and listen to, or you can listen to it from the site, or you can get access to the videos early and ad-free. Well, thank you all again for joining me. Until next time, this is Dallas, signing off.